right, Gen 5 E-linq. So if it's your first time doing an E-linq, it's pretty straightforward. If you need instructions, you can go on this thing here, instructions.brp.com. Punch in the part number on your box there. It'll give you the option to select the instructions for it, then you can print them out from there if you need them. Go right through, they give you all the torque specs and all the nerdy stuff you could ever need to know, where to route it, what to do, yada yada. So basically, this is your base. You plug this into the sled, gives it power and ground. Inside here, if I can open this guy up, you've got your 2 contact points. Oh, okay. It's all magnetic, so pop, flips closed. Flip it open, flip it closed. Flip it open, flip it closed. Moving down here, this is the new attachment point. So you clip this thing onto your jacket here. And this goes on the sled. Magnetic locks onto that. Power and ground pass through the 2 little connectors. And then you get to this guy, you gotta go and pop these white covers out, cut this tether off, and then you affix this key thing into here. Shut up. Fix the key thing into here, and then this all snaps on together as one unit. And when you get off of the sled, you don't want this whole thing dangling around. You then pull it back up and you clip it to that. So then you just have a bundle hanging around off your jacket instead of this long bundle. You have a smaller, but shorter, still a bundle. Once you get all your panels off, this is the connector where you're gonna grab power and ground. It's a 3-pin. This is kind of their accessory thing, accessory plug for a bunch of other stuff. I know they sell a splitter and whatnot. You got all kinds of options with that. So this blank plug right here is where your E-linq base is gonna go. It's kind of tricky to get to it because it's across on the other side over there. You can't really see it from here. But what I am gonna try to show you from under here is once you plug in your wiring into this connector, you got to run it across over there, and then that little hole there is where the Christmas tree grommet gets pushed in to retain the wiring and hold it up off of the pyramid frame here. Ah, you whore. Now you gotta go fish it out, not drop the base. Here's one part of the instructions that kind of sucks. Remove the console cap by pressing its push nut with a flathead screwdriver. The push nut is under there. Here we go. This is actually working pretty good. Oh. Come on, come back to me. Oh, come on, don't do this to me. The push nut is that little guy there. It's those stupid flat washer nut things with the little diggers on them that are on hood vents. The push nut is basically one of these guys. They're on all kinds of hood vents and things like that. I don't know what the hell they mean by just pressing its push nut with a flathead screwdriver. You can't get to it, dude. So this is that little cover from the center console up here. This goes in first, and then down. And you have that little self-retainer nut, this stupid thing. Oh yeah, we suffered a workplace injury, no big deal. But it's this dumb little thing that you gotta get up in there, pry off. You basically have about that much room to get up under there with some pliers and a screwdriver and try not to drop it all the way down into that mess. You can get this started, you get your connector started into here, and then you gotta jam your fingers in here and do one of these little hook numbers to get up over the frame. So the connector has to be lengthways front and back to get up over the top of the frame rail on this side and on the other side because it's super tight up under there. If you take this little Christmas tree off, this connector here, it slides into right there. That gives you a little bit of extra space. saw in the previous video, we started out with these Hornet 164s. And what we're gonna end up doing after talking with the customer and going over clearances and doing some measuring and stuff to be super safe, we're going with the HNT 134s. So this stud from INS Products, or I believe used to be Roten, probably the same company, you know, maybe a name change or something, I'm not too sure there, but either way, this is what everyone refers to as the Roten Hornet. Super fine point here. They penetrate really, really well. They hold up pretty damn good. The 134s give you an overall length of 1.69, so your traditional stud installed height, so from the surface of the track to the tip, gives you around a 1.44 or a 1.45. Moving up, the HNT 152s, overall length 1.83, 1.58 installed. 164s, like we had in the previous original video of installing, is an overall length of 1.95. And that gives you what I'm assuming would be an installed height of 1.64, or as I measured it, 1.7. So I might have had a little bit more squish into the track there than the measurement they got. Either way, you're around 1.65, 1.64, 1.7, something like that. Then moving down, figure in the protector at 5/8 of an inch tall, even though it is a little bit taller than that, but that's just to be safe, give you a little bit of extra buffer room. These are your protrusions over the top of your 1.25 lug. And then this is your clearance from once your track hits the protector. You have roughly this much before your stud tip will interact with the cooler or the tunnel underneath. So those 164s, you can see, not a lot of buffer room there. Now, if you're running just on the lakes and you're being really careful with your track tension and you're paying attention, you can squeak this out of that thing. But to be safe with your average trail guy and to really just hop on and ride and not worry about it, the 134s are the best buffer zone you're gonna get. You got almost 1/2 inch of clearance as it is, and then you factor in a little bit extra on the protector. You're golden with any sort of goofy track deflection under braking or weird bumps or anything like that. So talking with the customer and going over everything, the 134s were the safest bet. That still gives you about 1/4 inch once you have that extra squish, tightening them up. You got around 1/4 inch of penetration over the top of your lug, and you're gonna be safe that way and not run into any potential issues with deflection or the stud contacting the cooler. So for comparison's sake, here is a 2-ply Woody's 1.45 compared to the Hornet 134. Then moving over, you have the Hornet 164, and here you have a Studboy PowerPoint Plus in a 1625. So we're gonna run a bunch of these Hornet 134s with some Studboy backers. Shout out to Ed over at INS Products. He's been awesome to deal with. Just great guy. He picks up the phone. You can get him on the phone and talk to him, tell him what you're going through, and he's willing to work with us on getting this all sorted out. And if you're looking for studs and you want something with a pretty damn good fine point that's going to give you great penetration, don't hesitate to hit up Ed. Heads up, if you have a Comp Turbo and you have the rear end up in the air like this for studding or doing slides in the future or whatever else, if your methanol tank is full, it does leak somewhere in here. You can see we got a little bit back here and a little dribble down through here. So if you left your sled like this overnight, you'd probably come into maybe a puddle on the floor or a more substantial leak than this. But I'm gonna go ahead and pop this cover off and see exactly where underneath here it's leaking, but I'm gonna let it down first and then go from there. That wasn't too hard to figure out. There's a bit of a vent right here. You kind of see right there in the middle. You got a little bit of vent on this. The cap itself, I believe, is vented as well out of the center there, and then this little piece spins. So I think they got this thing double vented, or possibly in cases of expansion and temperature changes and all that stuff. And then I started looking it over. You got your little pump down here. You got a standard little 2-pin Deutsch connector over here for the pump. Those other wires go to the battery. There's an auxiliary plug under here, right there. Not sure what that guy's for. Heated seat or something, maybe? Don't know. Anyway, there's no level sensor on the tank, so I'm assuming this is their level sensor of some sort. Standard 2-pin. Got this little sight glass right here. sure you guys can see in the time lapse and stuff how I'm installing these, which is pretty much just dry, right out of the bucket, stud, little Milwaukee boy down on number 1. It does chew through batteries pretty good, so keep that in mind. If you're gonna go this route and you have one of these little Milwaukee M12s, just make sure you have 2 or 3 batteries going. Make sure they're on the charger in between, you know, so you got a fresh one every time. But I just run them in there dry, no soapy water, no none of that. I've tried the crock pot method where you get them a little hot, not necessarily hot, but you get them warm, get them softened up. I found doing it that way, unless I put the studs in by hand, I found that the little drill can strip them right out if you get them a little bit too warm. So I've went away from that crock pot method, and I just run them in with this gun until they stop, give them a little extra little twist. And I have not had any issues with any of them on the last, man, I don't even know, 15, 20 sleds I've done this way. So that's how I do it. As everything I show you guys, that's just the way I go about it. If you got a method that works better for you, by all means, keep doing that. I'm not saying my way is perfect, but this is how I do it. Back at it. This side's been awkward because it's like all cattywampus crooked, but we got it. Phew! My wrist hurts. Oh, sure. When these are still fresh, you can generally, goddamn, watch my knuckles, go through. If you got some that are really crooked, you can get a little bit of a turn on them. It's not gonna matter too much, but my OCD gets all pissed off if I don't go through and straighten them up. You'll have, you know, like this guy here is a little crooked, can't really help that. A lot of times when you put your template down on here, it's not perfectly straight, so you can probably see in some of the time lapse, I would try to shimmy it around and get it straight, but you just can't always get them dead nuts perfect unless you take 6 hours to do this. And no one's gonna wanna pay you to do 6 hours worth of studding, so you gotta kind of find a middle ground and just let her eat. Shout out to Land Air in Essex, Vermont, our local Skidoo dealer. They were awesome getting this thing assembled super quick for us, getting it over here. When they left the flap off, they were nice enough to go ahead and label up all the rivets and stuff and throw those in little baggies for me. So that's awesome. Love to see that. Just thanks again, boys. Last thing up for the Comp Turbo here is going to be throwing on his SLP Mohawks. We got new yellow loops from SLP. They match really well. It's just the standard yellow color on their site. Not sunburst, not anything else, regular yellow. Actually, I'll flip this camera around, show you the skis and the carbide setup that we're running on that. That was a close-up, weird. And then the loop part number for anyone else that wants to run an SLP and wants it to match. And then time lapse, the usual deal bit there, and that'll be about it for the Comp Turbo until Jaws gets their pipe sorted, and then it'll come back and we'll do a video on throwing that thing on and see how it goes this season. Cutting over here, loop part number 35-604, Mohawk yellow. Okie dokie. We got our usual SLP Mohawks here, running a stud boy shaper bar. And then these are the older ones, the SLP keel blade, they call it. We've always called it the spoon. If any of you are coming over from Yamaha stuff, back in the Apex days, a lot of guys did this same trick. My father and I have been doing this since, fuck, I don't even know, 2010 probably. Taking the keel blade, and they normally have a stud, and they're meant to run the stud up through here, and then a 2-post short bar, and then the keel blade centers on the next post, and you have nothing up front. that ends up pushing for us big time, you know, those of us that ride aggressively. So what we always used to do to run a big bar that was aggressive enough, but take the darting out, was take the plasma cutter and blow that stud out of the keel blade. And then you run this whole setup right here. So you have that keel blade that cuts right through. You get pretty much no darting. I'd say it removes 95% of darting. And then you still have the majority of where your spindle sits is still right on top of that shaper bar. Ryan seems to love this setup, so we're gonna keep him on that. These ones are, these shapers are starting to get a little beat up, especially this guy's got some chunks out of it, but there's no sense putting brand new shapers on for him to go out in the first few rides of the season, whack a couple rocks or whatever else with them and tear those up. So these are good enough to run the first few rides out till the snow conditions improve, and then we'll swap them over to the new set of shaper bars, hopefully the same time as the Jaws pipe, and whatever else we end up doing on this hot rod. I forgot to mention it in the other clip there. The keel blades, SLP now offers them without the stud in it, so you don't have to do any cutting or plasma torch or any of that stuff like I had for years. Now you can just buy the keel blades themselves with a hole here, drop them over your full length SLP runner, and off you go. Here's a Skidoo gripe I bet a lot of people have. This spare belt holder absolutely sucks. All the ingenuity and engineering that they can come up with, and we still have this belt holder. Things are miserable to get the belt into. And then they never work right. They always slip out up top, and then you're too far past here and it makes getting your pin in a pain in the ass. Just like a new belt holder would be cool, because this thing sucks. Last step. She's ready to rip. Big pickup day. In-closing type thing on the Comp Turbo after working on it for a couple days. Crazy impressive feat of engineering. They're just really refined. There's sensors everywhere. You can tell there's just a ton of R&D that goes into these things. They're not the most fun to work on, though. I'll say that. You know, the Skidoo in terms of serviceability is not what the Polaris stuff is. You need special tools. They're a lot more advanced. They're a lot more involved. The best way I can compare it is like, these are like a BMW, and then your Polaris stuff is like a Honda type deal, right? Most people can go ahead and work on those. You need basic tools. Getting into some of the clutching stuff, you might need a fancy compressor here and there. But as a whole, the Polaris is way more serviceable and easy for the average user to go ahead and work on. These things are just way more involved. They're complex. Like I said, they're sensors. You need special tools to remove things. But along with that just comes that sophistication and the overall, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Refinement, I suppose, that these things have. And I feel like Polaris has come a long way in terms of refinement and making that total package feel a lot better. These are still just, I mean, look at them. Everyone knows, right? But man, they are not fun to work on. All in all, cool machine. I can't wait to see what it does out on the snow. I hope they perform the way everyone is expecting them to perform. Hopefully, I don't want to say this, but I do. Hopefully they're not another flop like the Mach was. You know, the Mach is an amazing machine. It's a great kind of grand touring type machine, but I don't think they are what everyone thought they were going to be getting. Hopefully this is what everyone thinks they're going to be getting.